Welcome, everybody, to the AV Exchange presented by Midwich. I am your host, Joe Dunbar. It's late October here, Thursday, October 23rd. I've got my buddy Pike in the wings waiting to join us here from Logitech. So I'm excited for everybody to be here. As always, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate the time. We're going to do a little bit of a dive today, which is kind of always what I've wanted this to be more of. So I'm excited to get into it with Pike. We're going to do a deep dive into Spot, and we're going to take a look at Sync basically and kind of work between those two things. Pike is in the office right now and hiding in a place, so we'll bring him in a minute. But right before we bring Pike in, I got to do the kind of the whole housekeeping stuff we want to check in on. So Q&A for questions. You guys know that helps keep me in line there. Chat for any kind of discussion. I always love to hear about, success stories or anything like that with the products. Normally we launch an awareness poll. I don't really think we need to do that here. I feel like everybody here knows who Logitech is at this point. And if you don't, come on out from under the rock and join the rest of us. And I didn't update this. Shame on me. We're going to give away an MX Master 4 mouse from Logitech. So they've been gracious enough to provide one of those to be given away. So I'm going to pull up a quick video and we're going to check that out. All right, we've got Pike Schouten. How you doing, Pike?
I'm doing great, Joe. Glad to be here. Always fun sessions with you.
Yeah, man. We'll have to take a look at where you're at. So we just saw a video on the MX Master 4, right? That's we're on the fourth iteration.
It is. Yeah, I have one at home. Today I'm traveling with my own MX Anywhere, but it is my go-to at home. The haptic feedback, absolute game changer. The action ring. As a sales engineer, I can pull up the wire diagrams at my fingertips, our product hub, our sync hub. It's such a powerful mouse now that we have options plus and all the customizations that you can do with it. So maybe one day we'll have to cover that as well.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to dive into that a little bit. I just remind everybody for the giveaway, relevant questions will get you an extra entry into the raffle. And so certainly with a great prize like this, Pike has seen it, but I'm literally like, I got a MX Master. This is the original one. Here's a 2S. I've got a 2 laying around here somewhere. So there's no shortage of Logi mice. And I was saying to you guys beforehand, like the original, I can get this off the original MX Master that I have here. I mean, I don't even know how old this is at this point, but it's got to be at least 15 years old and still running strong for me. So I think it's time to upgrade because the features are there, but it's like, man, mine works fine. I don't know.
Yeah, no, lots of new features to make it a valid upgrade for sure.
Yeah, it's that time. Well, Pike, you're where are you? You're in the offices right now in the Bay Area?
I am. I'm at our HQ in San Jose, and today I'm actually joining from a different type of meeting space. Again, we want to really start looking at capturing, these type of booths. This is a Framery booth, so
this up here
where I'm just on my laptop, as you can see, I'm right in here, and this is a great example that we have these meeting pods right in the office where if it's just one person or two people, instead of taking a space that is really designed for 4 to 6 like a huddle room or a medium-sized room. Again, I've been guilty of that, right? I'm just trying to find a room to jump on a meeting without taking it from my desk, for many reasons. Doesn't help that I'm quite loud as well. But yeah, this really helps kind of open up those rooms to really larger groups
Yeah.
of groups of four and so forth. Yeah.
I've
So
seen Pike a lot of these setups in offices all over, but particularly in smaller, medium-sized businesses where they don't have, a huge array of conference rooms and
right.
meeting spaces. They can have a dedicated space for this, a dedicated space for that, and for a lot of us that just need privacy, right? Like these are great spots. I worked out of a similar kind of phone booth sort of vibe. At an AVISPL event not too long ago here this summer, and
Right.
it was so nice. I was worried that I'd feel like I was in a fishbowl and like be kind of conscious about, but it was so quiet in there that
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
so much done.
Yeah, I got a little white noise, but it's kind of calming. This the nice thing is that this has ventilation built in. It's got good lighting, comfortable seats. So this is great for single meetings or having a conversation with a colleague. Maybe it's something confidential that has to be discussed. It's great. It's definitely also for our office where we're hiring more people, we're expanding.
Yeah.
So now adding some additional meeting pods, kind of again, like we mentioned, it frees the traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I we've got a crew here joining us today, so thanks everybody. We're gonna deep dive into Spot. I know Spot. We've talked about it for a little while now, and I'm a little worried that people just kind of get it in their heads that like, oh, Logitech has an occupancy sensor, and it's like that's really not fair to say. So we're gonna
Right.
kind of dive in and take a look into Spot. Where do you want to start? I know we've got a video, we've got some content.
Yeah,
What?
we're gonna really dig into it, but yeah, since we've been vibing with the cool MX4 video, why not kick this off with a video for Spot? I think it's a great intro to get everyone excited to see what Spot can do in your workspace.
Cool. Let's take. All right, so we got to take a look at that video to get a cool, a good sensibility for Spot and kind of where it belongs. Let's dive into it, man. I'm excited to learn about this. I know we're going to see some stuff in sync as well. So let's start wherever you're ready to start.
Yeah, just, again, really excited to showcase Spot. I actually brought one just kind of for size reference. It's always hard to kind of, get a good understanding, like how big is it, right? So you can see this is one of our Logitech Spots. As you can see, here's the back. We're not going to do a whole unboxing, but again, here's the cover. Good tip, like if you're going to use this, a lot of times I'll tell partners, maybe use 3M temporarily just to get the positioning right, because once you pull this off, that's its home, right? The battery is going to last, for up to 10 years. It's very efficient. So keep in mind that, that's its home. Now, of course, you can uh, easily remove it should you need to replace the battery. Again, it also, since we're kind of looking at it, it does have USB-C. This is primarily for, healthcare, another vertical that we're really starting to invest in. But for the majorities, it's in some ways kind of from a management set it, forget it, and then really start leveraging the insights that we're going to get into. And to your point, Joe, yeah, this is so much more than just a presence sensor. Now, of course, adding a presence sensor is quite frankly really a must in this framery booth that I'm in, right? The meeting pods, because the challenge that we see in these type of spaces is, yes, I can use this space, but with all the data analytics that we've built out with Sync, really allowing IT and facilities to see, how many meetings took place in this room, how often is it occupied? Is it under occupied? Are there just individuals booking a medium sized space, or is it over occupied? Right. The
Sure.
ability to do occupancy in these type of spaces will show facilities and IT like. Do we need more meeting pods or do we need less? Are they being used? How often are they being used? And then in this smaller environment, Of course, this one has ventilation. I've seen some that do not have ventilation and so
Right.
forth. We want to really just monitor so much more. So, Spot is really our modern day sensing device that can be easily deployed, throughout the office space. And there's many different use cases for that, and being able to enable also workspace automations, which we'll get into, and gathering those important insights, on, again, this is again another room, right? So yeah, really excited to kind of walk you through Spot. Then we're definitely excited to hear your questions, and we'll dive into the data as well. Like, Joe mentioned, we're really kind of do a deep dive today to give you a good understanding, how you can really grow meeting spaces and monitoring that with Spot. So with that,
I
start with the
Pike,
visuals. Yeah.
yeah. We got it pulled up. I will have to ask, but I'm going to give you I'm wondering if it's in here at some point, maybe address it. But you already mentioned that the Spot has a USB-C port on it and kind of alluded to where it may be. So I'm hoping we'll get kind of a peek at where you would use that as well. Because immediately I'm like, oh, what's that for? Like, how are you applying it?
Yeah.
Where are you using it? So you'll have to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that one right now, because I didn't overemphasize. It is, in our honest opinion, it's really not needed. It's the battery is so efficient. When you deploy this, which you can see here with a tab scheduler, the tab
Mhm.
scheduler from the power part is doing all the lifting. The tab scheduler is connected to the network. The tab scheduler is a constant power device. So it's just constantly pinging the scheduler, and it goes back to sleep. It's asking, hey, what's the status? It's connecting back to the internet, because this is just, paired to the tab through Bluetooth. So this becomes almost like an extension of the scheduler, similar to when you deploy a Rally bar and you're at our companion camera site. You're not
Yeah.
managing the firmware separate. It's like adding a supercharger to an engine. Now, we'll get into that. Site can also be deployed without a scheduler for certain scenarios. That's primarily more for very large enterprises that are gonna put them across, cafeterias, big auditoriums, and so forth. We're working on supporting that as well with a gateway. But the most common uses that we're going to talk about today would be Spot in combination with our tab scheduler. And that's how you really get that long battery life out of it, because it's just constantly just connecting and then going to sleep. So, however, um, healthcare, it is a set requirement that devices are constantly powered. And it does allow you, so you bring up a good point, to do a little bit more aggressive constant monitoring. So it won't do the sleep pattern. So great
Gotcha.
question. But yeah, the USB-C, it's a nice to have, but a must for healthcare. I guess that's the best way to phrase it. Yeah.
Good to know. I appreciate you got to consider kind of all that. But so it sounds like regular operation for those of us in typical conference and collaboration spaces and stuff. The Spot is working in conjunction with a tap at the table and or a tap scheduler.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the tab scheduler, so it doesn't pair to the tab controller. It's really the
Okay.
tab scheduler, and that gets into some more of these features that we're going to speak to. So yeah, great way to
Take a
kind of
look.
get into it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
So ideally, I love doing live demos. However, by design, and we're not going to spend 5 minutes waiting here, but by design. Um, you want to make sure that it's not going to instantly detect the presence. It will detect someone, but here's the thing: a lot of times when I go into a meeting room, I might go back into that space because I forgot maybe my laptop, my phone, or whatever you may have left in that room. Sometimes people come into the room, within a minute or so, and they leave, right?
Sure.
So there's what we're going to talk about right now is a great feature that we've spoken about this before. We've introduced this, recently, beginning of this calendar year, I believe, if my date memory serves me well, and that's the auto release and auto book feature. So right now, any Rally Bar Mini, because they have the AI viewfinder that senses an actual human occupant, right? Within 5 minutes of someone being present in that space, So let's take an example. I go into a meeting room. I'm on the phone. I'm just using that meeting room. It's a very important phone call. It needs to be private. I kind of squatted into that room, right? I kind of hijacked the room, didn't book it, right? And you see this all over the place, and I've been guilty of that. And the challenge is now that creates conflict. Maybe someone in the meantime, while I'm on this call, decides to book it from their calendar, or they have, Logiview, which we've spoken about before. They decide, to book the space. Well, the great feature with auto book is that right now, any of the rally bars and rally bar minis, when they're rolled into sync and they have an essential plan or select, they have that feature, and that works with any scheduler that we have, our tab scheduler running Teams, Zoom, AppSpace, or our own desk booking. So it will automatically reserve the space for me for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. That's something that IT can decide to set. But it's a great feature because it allows these rooms to run more efficient. And we're also now tracking meeting usage, right? Is that room being used? Is there someone in there for a certain time? And is there a meeting taking place? And as soon as I leave the space, right, then it's of course releasing. So that's great when you have AV in a room. But right now I'm in this framery booth, right? I have my
Yeah, you're in an
laptop.
empty booth.
The only tech that's in this room, right? Until now, of course, the only tech is really my laptop. And as soon as I leave, there's no tech in that room. So what we really want to get to is, how do we start monitoring how these rooms are being used, right? And that's where, by adding the Spot into this framery booth, pairing it to the tab allows you to kind of create that experience, right? So I think this actual Meta shoot, this is
I
exactly
love this picture. Are you sitting in the
right
far
where,
right
yeah,
booth right now?
they photoshopped it a bit, but yeah, I'm literally where that guy on the right is. Yeah, that's me right here. So yeah, that's my
That's
I guess
awesome.
my AI doppelganger.
It
um,
looks good. It looks good.
yeah. So that's the beauty, right? Again, the best technology is technology that you don't, it just works. It just, just like Sight is capturing the conversation, we're just having a conversation. We'll walk into that space, right? And, as soon as someone's in the space, it auto books. As soon as they leave, it's released, right? So you can see there's a vacant room. People don't really have to, they can focus on that conversation that they have without having to reserve it, because maybe they're in the middle of the conversation, they're going into a booth, continuing that, and kind of set it, forget it. It's kind of doing that work. Especially a lot of times these booth people go in there for maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes.
Right.
It's not common to see people here for hours. Again, you can of course do that, but it's usually kind of these ad hoc calls that really take place in that space, and that's where that accurate detection of Spot really shines.
Well, there's certainly a lot of applications too, Pike, where we see, I'm thinking about all the time I've spent in an office and how many times I ask somebody a question and it leads into more of a conversation, that it goes from a quick question to maybe a 10-minute discussion. But, we got to let's go find a room to have this conversation or something like that.
Yeah.
So certainly that would help be effective. And I imagine it remedying ghost bookings as well.
Oh, 100%. It just allows, and the visibility, right? And we can start scaling. Like we just deployed. This is the first one. We have more meeting pods. The other meeting pods, we have no visibility of how these rooms are being used, and we're going to get into that. So it really helps with scalability, right? So these booths, these meeting pods, they're great, but there's a cost involved to it. There's a significant investment, right? So that way, it's just going to help our customers feel confident when they end up committing to adding more. Or maybe they're saying, okay, well, this office doesn't need as many, maybe we're going to ship some to another site, right? It's all about really the providing that scalability, tying in those automations that simplify the experience. But then there's so much more which we even haven't even gotten into, right? Because it's so much more than just a presence device. Yes, that is very important, and the presence is done by radar. So even if I take a nap in this room and I'm barely moving, as long as I'm breathing oxygen, this guy will definitely detect a human being present. Now, it's of course it's not going to count multiple people in that space. Again, that use case is less important because in these booths, it's going to be one or two people. People are not going to try to fit more people in. It's not a photo booth, right? So it's just detecting a presence of a human. But then, of course, again, if we do see on that fact, if we see a lot like so. What's interesting here? This is a booth for two people. We also have a booth that can sit four, right? So we
Okay.
could start in a way detecting that we have more people that should be in the room because what Spot will detect is that the CO2 levels will elevate at such a level that it really becomes uncomfortable. And we've, I've set into that these training sessions way back. I've even gone to a vendor that they just packed so many people in the room, which they really should. They just didn't have the
Yeah.
right space. And then people start yawning. Why are people
Yeah.
yawning? They're deprived of oxygen. They're not going to remember anything of that meeting.
We've all been in those situations. So it's funny you say that. I like that the Spot gets a little deeper than just, being radar and there is or isn't activity in the room. But what an interesting way. Will it pair these two things together to like make determinations? It looks at all these things at one
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna really dive into that. How are we displaying this data through sync, and how can we make sense of this data? So we're gonna do a lot with that. So beyond those, the seven, sensors that we have, we're really gonna unpack that data in a very user friendly way that IT and facilities can really dissect it, kind of deep dive into this to see, okay, let's look at, the air changes, right? We are actually documenting like the actual air here in the room, and just real quick, you can see the spot is right here in the ceiling. There we go. There we have it. Um, so
Talking by the light there.
yeah. So it's out of sight, out of mind, basically, right? But we can actually start looking at how often is the ventilation being triggered by the HVAC, right? And this could also help save money because 60% of the energy bill is the HVAC. So how can we run that more efficient? So we can start seeing like also when, for instance, when we see that there is a buildup of particle matters, right? We can start advising, well, maybe your HVAC should actually run more often to have better air circulation, or maybe if it has a window that can open, maybe they should start thinking of opening the window midday. So there's a lot of factors that we can help monitor to create, healthier meeting spaces, right? To make sure that the air that I breathe is healthy, and that there is also enough air to breathe, right?
Yeah.
So and humidity is another big factor in different climates as well. We're pretty spoiled here in California, but it's a real thing. I'm reminded about that all the time when I travel to the East Coast. So we're
Yeah.
monitoring
Right.
that, of course, as well. Yeah, and not to forget temperature, of course. Yeah.
So we're taking all these things into consideration, and you know what? I want to ask about platforms that it works with. And Pike, we got a great question from Wilson here. I'm digging it up. Where was it? Wilson wanted to know if the configuration of the scheduler, like the platform, does the platform have any impact on the functionality of the Spot? Are certain features only
Great
available to
question.
certain things, or?
So the answer is no. So regardless if you're using our room booking software, right, that we have, that you get with our essential plan, and of course select as well, this will is going to function the same way as if I would run Teams on the scheduler or Zoom on the scheduler.
So it's
It's
agnostic to that.
it's fully agnostic, and it's going to get better. We're also going to partner, we'll get to that, with some partners that are kind of leading the space when it comes to interpreting the data of these sensors, right? But I think our team is doing a fantastic job to have this in sync at the fingertips, because that's where IT goes to monitor the rooms to begin with, from the firmware, and is everything up and running. So it's kind of that one-stop shop. But we are going to open things up, and of course we have an API. So over time, again, Spot has not been released yet. Just want to make everyone aware of that. I don't have an exact date, but yeah, there's going to be many different ways of consuming this data. But we'll definitely get into kind of how we can start doing this. And instead of going through these slides, here are some great examples, right? How we're going to start monitoring room energy. How is that HVAC running, right? We're going to give it a health score, and then we'll dive into that, do a little bit of a live demo, but really then creating actionable insights. Like, we're going to really give this room a healthy score. Is it healthy or unhealthy, and when are the times that it's not healthy? And then, of course, it also business hours play a fact as well. Like, because who cares what the temperature is to an extent at 3 a.m. when there's no one there, right? So.
Right. This I like that, Pike, that you guys have thought about adding in the, alert, like assigning. It's not just information that needs to be digested and then interpreted and, decided upon. Like, it's taking the information, aggregating it for you, and presenting it in a way that says, okay, I can take some action on this stuff, right? It's not just information that you then have to decide on.
Yeah, and that's waiting for screen sharing. I didn't transition because now I want to take a little pause from the actual um, uh, presentation, and let's dig into it. Let's show to our audience here kind of how this all comes together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. So this is, of course, the Logitech Sync portal. And what's great is this is actually the booth that I am in right now. This is Framery, very original Framery booth number 3. That's where we're in right now. So I already kind of opened up the room. Just for the audience, we can kind of go a step back so you can see this is the Sync portal. I'm under inventory. There is the Framery booth, which again, we can see we have a bunch of Frameries that really need a spot and a scheduler. There's nothing in there. There's not much we can do there. But this booth is actually functional and up and running. So let's dig into the inside. So you can see Spot is, of course, tied into this with the tab scheduler. So you can see the tab scheduler. There's another update available. It shows that it's running room booking. But again, this could be Teams for Zoom or AppSpace, for example, right? Or Robin and so forth. We have so many partners now. It's hard to memorize all of them. It's like a whole page now.
It grows every day.
Yeah, yeah. So and you can see this is just the Spot is there, it's connected, but this is where the real gold is, right? So we can, if we look at the occupancy, you can see here on today's date, of course, and we also have that historical data, right? So we can capture many days of data. And if we can zoom in here, so there's no one detected here. This is, I think they just had this one up. So there you go. So this IT has been actually working on changing out the specific scheduler because it's not on production yet. So it's running, again, a beta firmware. But they did have it up and running with another scheduler. So they just swapped that out. Again, this is a working lab, just want to remind you of. But you could see when they had it up and running with the previous scheduler, again, things are moving around here. You can see on the 13th that, it actually detected. So there's someone using the space for 10 minutes, right? 13 minutes, 10 minutes. So you can see people in and out, and there's a big break in between, which is around lunchtime. But this kind of also, it's interesting. You can kind of see the average of people in the room and like leaving the room. And it really is that kind of 50-minute threshold, as you can see. So, and then, it hasn't gathered enough yet to get that average one because, again, this was just up and running. We're going to, dive into some other rooms as well. But eventually you'll get trending and everything here. But I just wanted to show kind of a real live, because this is just up and running. So it is live now. So the occupancy, because this is again beta. We just enabled support, so it had to be on a specific firmware where this one wasn't. That's why we have that occupancy gap. I want to remind the audience again. I'm showcasing a beta version, but what has been running with the the actual current firmware, that before we deployed the occupancy support, is the actual monitoring of all the sensors. So you can see right now it's capturing this live. Like, there's very little particle matters, so this room is very clean, which is great. The VOC levels are almost non-existent. And maybe we need to kind of explain this to the audience too. So, if we look at, the different sensors, so VOC stands for volatile organic compounds. So these are basically gases that are being emitted. And this can be from liquids. Many common household and industrial products basically contain VOCs. And in an office environment, what is more common is it can be two things. One, it could be actually people eating in the room. Your food could actually start basically emitting VOCs. Not that is toxic, but a lot of food, those particles get also, it can even increase the amount of particle matters. But the VOCs and the spiking, when it really spikes up high, think of, a room getting cleaned with, a Clorox wipe, like any cleaners, or if there is construction nearby, if they decided to paint the room, that's gonna significantly spike that up to, very high levels. But yeah, it's still all organic to an extent, because, it contains carbon. So, but you can see in this space, it's all green, it's all nice and clean. It's a nice temperature, 43, 73 degrees. My wife loves that temperature, even though I always set the thermostat at like 75. But yeah, that's
everybody's got their sweet spot. So honestly, we could really leverage this information to like I'm thinking like a most realistic scenario that I would bump into maybe more often than not is like a regular weekly occurring meeting or something like that maybe is overpopulated. And I've been in that scenario. So if we see at Friday at 2:00 every week, all of a sudden this room is occupied, all of a sudden the levels exceed these thresholds. Do the thresholds and the way the spot reads, does it, I guess, like, how big of an area can it cover is what the question.
It's basically any small, medium, large to an extent. It has quite a broad coverage for a meeting room. Of course, that does change a little bit in open spaces, but that's where, for those larger deployments outside Tab Scheduler, you can install multiple. That will not, of course, do the presence piece, but that will just becomes then a really kind of sensor to monitor air quality and temperature and so forth.
Awesome.
But it's definitely in any of these medium to large spaces. You can even still capture also the actual detecting zone. So just because that room is very large, there's a certain area where people sit. That's the area that we really want to capture, and you can really align the spot for that, right?
Cool.
It's the same thing with a camera. Just because the room is 30 feet, we may not capturing people at 30 feet. But yeah, very, very good question. And what I wanted to share with the audience, right? Everything that we're covering today for Spot is also built into the Rally Board 65. Joe and we did a great session, which again is still on your YouTube channel as well, on the Rally Board 65. So that has a Spot basically built in. And here's a room. I'm literally in the Logitech corporate tenant that I'm showing some analytics. So this is in our office in Switzerland, in Zurich. This, I think it was a good example because I was kind of digging into, I need to find some bad data.
But you need a room that, the historical data takes time to accumulate and really develop any trends. Yeah. So when you're on a beta release.
Yeah. So and this is a large space, right? So this is the boardroom in Zurich. Now let's see here before we jump into this data under the room details. Okay, so they set the seat count to 40, which is a little bit. That's interesting. I have to see who did. That's a small space. And maybe the Europeans. Maybe it's not 13 feet. Maybe it's 13 meters.
That might be it. That might be it. But this answers a question that I had in my head here going through this is like, is there information about the room that we can populate to help the spot?
Yeah.
When you're thinking about like particulate matter per, whatever, like that per, like how do we know what size shape we're in? So that explains that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? It is a smaller space. I don't know how they're going to cram 40 people in there. I'll definitely have to.
Let's sit in my lap or something, whatever.
Yeah, because why is that information so critical? Why you want that actually to be accurate is with the insights that we're gathering. Here's an example, right? We're talking about, for instance, the oxygen, right? And we see that more in Europe and East Coast, where just the spaces are smaller sometimes. Just because you can fit 8 people in that space doesn't mean you should. So once you start putting in the actual occupants for the room, right, just to recap, right, under the details, right? So if we go to the room, we have that setting under details where you can put the seat count. That's taken into consideration when we start giving advice. So, for instance, if that was it had 8 participants, 8 chairs, and the oxygen starts getting to the CO2 level, gets at a certain threshold, we're going to start recommending, well, maybe you should take 2 seats out because it's just not comfortable for everyone. So that's a great example where we start kind of evaluating that. And you can see here's an example of this room where the VOC levels, have spiked. And again, CO2 is just okay. Like it's not red yet, but it's kind of getting there. So I guess they are packing a good chunk of people in that open space, right? So you can really start looking. Oh, so there we go. I stand corrected, Joe. I think we only see the picture of the rally board, but maybe behind it is it's an open workspace with a lot of cramped desks.
Right.
So you could see here's the CO2 levels they're not at red yet, but they're getting pretty close. That they're really at a rate where they really shouldn't be, and so you can kind of get these stamps. But if we go to the data here, you can really start breaking down where this occurred. So you could see, maybe they had an event in that space, perhaps, or a town hall or a team huddle, and they ended up really, cramping people there.
Or to your point, I mean, could also, well, I suppose if it's high CO2, yeah.
Now, what my gut is, they had a lunch and learn because the VOCs also spiked. So
I was thinking some cleaning or something, but with the CO2, that makes sense. Yeah. Pike, we got a great question that's relevant to this, and I think will be an easy one for you to answer. Shannon had a question here about we have all this information in sync, and obviously we can go in and drill down anytime. But we mentioned earlier, like there's communications that can go outward. Is there a weekly digest, or are there like a thresholds we can set so that at a certain time, this alert would go to the certain people? Like how do we determine that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. A lot of this data gets interpreted here, right? If we go into the system, right here, real quick under alerts, we have, of course, I don't have read only. We have alerts for occupancy. I'm not sure where that roadmap is yet on what we're gonna start doing with some of these additional health alerts, because the sync tenant right now is on production. Sure. I know right now we're just sending alerts if things get disconnected and so forth. We're not sending, to my knowledge yet, but it's a great question, and capture email if I can dig in a little bit more what the roadmap is that we can potentially share, because I can see, we're just getting started, right? I think over time there's so much more that we can do with proactively sharing.
That's what I think where the question really originates, and like in my mind for sure, I'm thinking, cool, like if a rally bar gets disconnected, we need to notify IT or the AV team, whoever's managing that. But if there's high CO2 levels or VOC levels, like that should probably go to facilities to, investigate the room. Is it just because people were in there and it was full, or B, it wasn't that case? And like maybe when nobody's in there, the HVAC is blasting and you've got a dirty duct or whatever. I'm just thinking this is like outside of like people who need to be notified here outside of like the IT kind of food chain.
No, all again, very valid points, and like I said, we're just getting started. So here's another room, but you can see here like how important it is to add the actual seats, the amount of seats that are in that space, right? Because it's and the measurements, right? These ratings are of course being also compared to that room. So the ability to actually give you that accurate data, we really kind of need to know. They did the seat count, but what they didn't do is they should have added the actual, dimensions of that room, for example, right? That's a great example where, okay, we need more information. So to provide that accurate analytics of how that room is being.
It makes me want to go fix up their deployment there.
Right, I know. Now I'm gonna find out who is in charge of that room in that region and say, okay, like we need to add the measurements. But it's good, right? Because as people are transitioning, in the past, our customers and even some of local IT, as you can see there, it's just not a common practice yet to start adding these details to the space, because before we're not really monitoring it to that extent. But now that we have that, and it's great now, you can start adding those that data set, even if you don't have a Spot installed yet. Any of the rooms allow you to kind of add the measurements, so whenever you do transition, the room is already providing all the data that really Spot needs to really give you that right sense of how the room is operating, give the accurate room score, and start giving recommendations as well. So yeah, other platforms, it's going to integrate with Microsoft and Zoom to their extent. We'll have to, time will tell how much they're going to leverage. Again, you can look at Sync as we're going to really, monitor everything, take it to its fullest potential. But of course, we want to offer that to our partners as well. And it's not just Microsoft and Zoom. We're also partnering with AppSpace and SmartThings. First, I'm like, oh, SmartThings. I have SmartThings at home. That's the B2C, right? The consumer version. This is really SmartThings has a whole lineup for more B2B, and really working with them, that they can also kind of start they build sensors, all kinds of different sensors that can work in combination with Spot.
That's really, Pike, like from my perspective, thinking about this is like, this opens up a bit of a new world for like what I would, I guess, refer to as like traditional AV. I bumped into a little bit of this during the pandemic, working for a big integrator and starting to get involved in more like building automation type solutions. And I think this ties in with that. And this opens our partners up to new relationships and new touch points with their customers now, in like the facilities teams and things like that, which is, makes you more sticky with your partners, and certainly gives you another kind of door in and another thing to talk about. So it's really, I feel like, looking at this from a system integrator perspective, I'm taking it in going, oh, this is all really cool. And then asking myself, where would I use this? And starting to fill those pieces in kind of based on what you're saying. And it's like, there's more to this than I really kind of thought at the beginning, kind of like where I could use this and who it could open me up to and what type of projects we could put it in. I for sure We've got about 10, 15 minutes here. I want to ask a little bit about using multiple spots together in more open spaces, but we can get to that at some point and stay on track here.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, we'll make sure we have enough time for that and questions. So, and then also, it's gonna customers can interpret that data even further. They can kind of, if they have their own kind of monitoring dashboard, right? It kind of comes back to that question: if you want to start really live monitoring that to an extent, maybe not yet into the alerts. I'm sure we'll get there, but these things are also going to be available through our sync APIs as well, right? And we have a cloud one and a local one. So, yeah, really exciting where this is going to go. I'm sure in 2026 we'll have another session on Spot to see kind of where it is once it hits the market and other things that we'll start adding to it. But even where we are at right now with everything that we're capturing, it's definitely absolute
opens up some new doors.
It
really does.
It really does. Yeah.
Well, and to your point earlier that you mentioned the supercharging is like this does kind of supercharge the Logitech experience. I can't say it enough for a lot of our Logitech oriented partners, like sync plus Logitech booking plus your Logitech hardware like really provides a wonderful not just like user experience in the rooms, but a wonderful management experience and a lot of insights. So this is really just going to supercharge that whole experience. Let's talk about, can we talk about deployments a little bit? I know it's coming up here. I just would we were talking Bluetooth earlier and USB-C. So let's take a look at what it's like to get some of these in place.
Yeah, and then Spot really again brings back. We introduced Logiview, right, where now people can really book spaces, meeting rooms. With our DocFlex integration, I can literally search for a colleague and I can see if they're at their desk. We really look at ourselves as a workspace solution provider. We're not just a video bar company. There's many of them out there, but what we're bringing to the table is that large product portfolio that can really scale with customers. And how do we bring technology in rooms that have no AV, right? And that's where Spot is really gonna expand, because we want to get insights of all the spaces, not just the spaces that are your traditional AV spaces, right? Just like this framework.
That's right. Kind of what I was getting to earlier. It's like this will really open us up to more potential deployment, more touch points, more contact, all that stuff.
Yeah, and because it's so efficient from the battery perspective, right? As we mentioned, it's very easy to deploy. You not want to attach it directly by the TV because that emits heat. You don't want to bring it as as close to the window where there's sunlight. So you want to kind of optimize it. You want to kind of set it at a spot that kind of covers between people sitting and standing. So that, as you can see, that's a great spot. So like 5 feet would be perfect, for instance. And there's lots of wiggle room, but that's kind of the optimal position of where you would place it. Like here again, that's not as feasible. We just put it on the top, but it's facing down. It's a small enough space. This becomes a little bit more important the larger the spaces, of course. And then you can even set the presence detection zone as well, similar like what we do with our video bars for the camera.
Well, I know Logitech is great about documentation, so at time of launch, I'm sure there will be ample documentation about placements, if not an entire document dedicated to here's where you should 100%. Put it now. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then again, you don't necessarily you can use the adhesive backing as I mentioned, but you can also just, screw it into the wall as well, which again also really, simplifies it. So for temporarily testing, you can use command strips. The one in my lab has been hanging on those command strips for quite some time because I'm
they do the trick, What's the don't fix it if it ain't broke.
So there's many ways of doing that. The battery it uses like a number 5 star bit. I had to find that out and do a hardware run because I wanted to just swap out the battery. They send us early samples and Yeah. So, and I said 10 years. I want to correct. It's 4 years. The 10 years. That's the battery life of the new solar keyboard that we launched. So it's somehow I had that misreference. So that
There's
is
a
a
lot of
quick
you guys have so much
correction.
new stuff all the time. It's like
Yeah, it's hard to
yeah,
keep up, but
it
four
keeps
years
going.
is a long time, right?
Plenty
Um,
sufficient.
yeah, and we'll dig into kind of that setting, which I haven't shown in sync. I just realized on kind of that the different type of monitoring setting. But for majority of use cases, the battery deployment is going to be ideal. But yes, and USB-C, of course, we're not going to supply a power supply, so that's just a third-party USB for power.
Got it.
Yeah, so again, the pairing is super simple. We're gonna be launching CollabOS 2.0 soon. That's also when our Rally Bar Mini will start updating to Android 12. Once that hits the market, there's gonna be on the tab this whole separate menu called Peripherals, which you might have seen under a Rally Bar Mini, and that's where you can then add the Spot. It's as simple as on the back here, there is a Bluetooth button. And once you basically start pressing that Bluetooth button for 5 seconds, it will start blinking blue. Now, this is a sample, so this is not going to light up. And then it will detect. The nice thing too, when it detects, similar to our tabs, which some parts may have not noticed, it will actually show the serial number just in case there's a bunch of other spots around the building and there's multiple um, integrators like installing units. You can make sure that you're actually pairing to the right one, of course. And then
Got
kind
it.
of back to your
This is what kind of we were wondering about larger deployments and how
yeah.
they apply there, right?
Yeah, so we are gonna supply also basically partner with a way of connecting this to basically a gateway. So
Hmm.
we will be providing a gateway which outside the conventional kind of pairing it to a scheduler in these much larger environments, pairing it to that gateway, I believe you can add up to 1,000 spots to this gateway. So yeah, it could be a quite, and the range is I believe like over a mile or something. It's yeah,
I
very.
know LoRaWAN is it obviously depends on your environment and everything, but I mean it's designed specifically for long range. So
Yeah.
you could use potentially on your environment one of these with quite a few spots, depending on the building.
Yeah, and this is what we're starting to see in appetite. Like they may want to start like the cafeteria and some of these other larger spaces that they want to monitor. Yeah, we can even see that in industries where they have meeting rooms, but they have some manufacturing as well.
Mhm.
Becomes kind of very important to
Absolutely.
monitor that as well. So
I
yeah,
spent some time, Pike, working IT at a children's hospital, and the safety of the building, not just in terms of physicals, but I mean monitoring the airspace and how healthy the space is, and if it's becoming unhealthy, is extremely important in that case, especially. So there are a
yeah,
lot of applications for that. We've got what about 6-7 minutes left here. I will do the drawing kind of at the end as we wrap this up. So I just want to remind folks as Pike is kind of wrapping this up, if you have any remaining questions, please do drop those in the Q&A. I know, Pike, I'm going to ask you, and I think you don't have an answer, which is okay. Do we have a release date yet, or is it still
it's
TBD?
it's still potentially scheduled for end of year, but that could slip. So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, we
I
know
would
how that
say
goes.
like yeah, late 2025, early 2026.
Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, the other thing, just like anything that we bring to market, we make sure that the Spot is also made with PCR plastics, really giving that second life to old consumer electronics, right? Really, and life cycle. Yeah, simple to replace the battery, as we discussed. This is, again, what I mentioned, right? This is why we're getting like 4 years of life, and I think I got the 10-year. Like we're being extremely conservative with 4 years, believe it or not. And I think that's
your measurements, and specs usually are. Your products usually can outperform what's listed there, but it's a matter of what can be supported.
Yeah, so it goes in a really deep sleep state, and that's how it's constantly pinging, going back to sleep. So it has many power naps a day. So
I wish I lived in that world. I certainly appreciate Logi's commitment to sustainability. It is rarely the single driving factor in a lot of decision-making processes, but in a world where we consume more and more, it does matter to myself, certainly, and a lot of partners as well, comes into play. So that commitment is well
100%.
appreciated.
Yeah, so it's really simple, smart, and sustainable, right? We love the S's.
That's easy.
Yeah, so it's oh, I also forgot to mention we just got an award as well from Time Magazine, Best Innovation of 2025. So
this these people, you might have heard of them, Time Magazine.
Yeah,
offered that's
something. About that. Yeah,
well,
so just sorry, I got to clean up that slide. So I guess this is the other question, of course, like when you deploy Spot, what is in how do I get the analytics, right? For many of those rooms, Essential or Select would really make sense for many of the space, depending on what tech there is in the space. If there's no tech, Essential could be a great option because it also gives you remote access to the actual scheduler, right? You get that auto book and release. And then, separately, it just becomes part of the, the wayfinding. So it has everything of that. And then, Sync Plus is now really kind of we didn't sunset it, so it's there just for very large enterprises that are going to deploy hundreds of spots. So with that, this is in an environment where it's not using a tab scheduler, right? So that's for those, they can be tied into a Sync Plus license. So because there's no need for some of the additional features and so forth. So. And then, of course, this works into Select. So, again, it comes back to all people, all spaces. Just want to open up for questions. I know I promised to show one last feature on kind of the a different way of how it goes to sleep with USB-C. So give me one quick second. I'll just go to
no problem. We got, it looks like we got all our questions in. I appreciate everybody for contributing that. It's hard with a new product. Like sometimes I just want to hear all about it before I start asking, does it do this or does it do that?
Right. Yeah.
Often we're going to address that stuff.
So you can see here, this is the so in this case, they actually this Spot is actually wired through USB-C. So you can see it's set to the room occupancy and all air metrics are reported every 5 minutes. So very constant. So, but you can see there's also the the low power, that's the default on the battery.
And that's where it communicates with the scheduler.
Yeah. So the air quality, it's the biggest thing is that, and then I'm still also discovering this is relatively new that it was added to Sync, but it's the air quality. That's the big difference when you connect it to USB-C. It's constantly being monitored.
Got it. I appreciate you showing us that. Pike, we get you in here pretty regularly, and I'm always grateful for your time and everything. We're going to give away MX Master 4 mouse. While I hit the button here to figure out and spin the wheel who's going to win this, get it updated, where can the people find you when you're not with us, my friend?
When I'm not
on
with
LinkedIn,
guys.
I know you travel around.
I'm gonna be in Boston with you. You're gonna find me there.
My man. I'm excited to see you as always. Anybody in the New England area, please come visit us. That you can find the registration information on our website, and we're looking forward to being in Boston with Pike and a bunch of our other Logi friends and partners as well. Pike, we got a big winner here. If I can find the button.
All right.
My friend Dustin Fisher. Dustin, we're going to get in touch with you afterwards and thank Pike for getting us that mouse out. Thanks everybody for joining us, stopping by, giving us your time. Hopefully you learned something new here. As always, you can, if you want more information, the easiest place to go is to reach out to your rep at Midwich and, let them know what you're interested in, and we can connect the dots from there and get you plugged in. So thanks, Pike, for joining us. We'll see everybody next time on the AV Exchange.